Juan Fernandez from ImageNet Consulting is here to discuss the new HP Business Boost program, a variety of new PCs and printers for the work-from-home era, and how to go big or go home, plus a special interview with Isha Yavel from Cato Networks on SD-WAN and Security. It's ChannelPro Weekly, episode 160, Not That Kind of Club. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 160. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this program for you. And when I talk about you, you are the VARs, the IT integrators, the managed service providers, aka MSPs. You're the MSSPs. By the time you throw managed services into the mix somewhere, you are in the right place, because now like everything is as a service. So if you're selling software as a service, or if you're doing anything technology as a service, you are in the right place, okay? If you are a hostess at Applebee's, this would be a weird show for you to watch, but maybe you're looking for a career change, and we welcome you as well. Joining me each and every week is our awesome co-host, the executive editor here at ChannelPro, and a good friend, and the man who rocks black on black with black glasses better than anybody that I know, Rich Freeman.
Greetings, everybody. From here deep in forest fire smoke.
I'm about to say, I'm surprised we can even see you. Like, you must have turned the air conditioner or got a room filter on, because it would be a big haze otherwise.
Yeah, it's none of the shirt, the jacket, the glasses, they weren't black before, but the smoke has changed the tint of everything.
You know, it'd be kind of funny the way your outfit works out, though, Rich. Like, if we could find a virtual background filter to take out black, because it's like your whole torso there is kind of like a big black vortex. It would just be your head floating in the middle of the screen talking. And we need to make this happen.
Yeah, well, it sounds like the stuff of nightmares, but it would be interesting to see.
Only if we can make it so you could spin in your chair and it look like your head is just spinning. It'd be like right out of Ripley's Believe It or Not or something. We gotta work on that and make that happen. But Rich, we are not alone. We do have a awesome guest host today. Very excited to have him on. We've been chit-chatting a little bit here before the show started, and I think it's going to be a really, really fun show. So our guest host, he's an experienced technology leader with a successful history of working in the information technology and services industry. He's skilled in managed services, enterprise solutions, team building, public speaking, and is well regarded as a visionary with a professional focus on developing the future of IT services and products. Please welcome the Vice President of Managed IT Services for ImageNet Consulting, Juan Fernandez. Welcome, Juan.
Good morning, everybody. How are you doing?
Very well. Thanks for coming on and being here with us today. If you can, I mean, I kind of give a little bit of background there about you, but if you can, in your own words, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about ImageNet Consulting and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, hey, I've been in IT for about 26 years now. You know, I started off just like a lot of people, right? I started off at a weird little place called AOL on the frontier of the internet, and really try to help people out with, trying to figure their way out through this new thing called the internet. And here we are 20-some plus years later, 30 plus years later, in a different place, right? And so I have been a long-term learner as well as an educator, and helping people, teaching them what I know. And so that's really where I'm at now, is really doing the similar things, right? We built a great managed service practice here at ImageNet Consulting. It was something that I was a CIO of a college and decided, you know what, hey, the wave of technology is coming. It's an important time. People need to get into this space, and a lot of people needed a lot of help. And there was still a little bit of fire in me. And so I jumped back out into the wave and have kept paddling and trying to stay ahead of the technology curve and delivering technology solutions for companies. So it's been a really great story. It's really been a lot of fun for us to build. And, over this last 5 years, we've become very well renowned in our offering and our opportunities. So it's just been a great experience. It's taking the juvenile aspect of my entire career and learning and expertise and forming them into a way that I could actually help companies and really, and invoke change in the technologies arena, not just from a customer perspective, but also from a consumer as well as a value-added reseller, and also helping out some of the vendors that are in this space today. It's amazing how many vendors actually need help working with partners. So I've done a lot of that and consulting with those guys to try to help, the channel and moving the channel forward. So it's been really cool, really fun.
That is a very interesting background in history you have. I always love it when I run into someone who worked at AOL, especially back in the day. Now, what was the area, the time frame that you were there?
So I was there in like 91.
Oh, so like right on that was like when hardcore floppy disks in grocery stores,
Oh yeah.
all that stuff. So a very important question here. Did you meet the person who said you've got mail?
I didn't meet that guy. But man, that it's PTSD's time whenever I hear it come back. Because I mean, I remember the funny part was I remember troubleshooting modem strings by listening to the other end of the phone when people were on the phone with me. I was like, okay, hey, well, go ahead and connect your device up, and then let me hear what it sounds like. Oh, I would listen to it, and I could actually tell them what was wrong with their modem string. So yeah, I was completely immersed in that nonsense.
Wow. The culture at AOL at the time, like, did AOL, did the people there who worked there feel like they were on the cutting edge of something huge in the way that they were?
I don't know. I mean, if you think about it from then, we were all so young, right? I was super young. I was in my teens, right? I was still in my teens. And I remember when I was there, I was foolish, right? I mean, that was one of the first places that I learned that I knew nothing about stocks because they were issuing stock like crazy. And we were just like, hey, every time it split, we were just like, sell it, and it was just a crazy time. We never realized. Like, I remember sitting in the community action team rooms and watching this new chat platform pop up and watching people. And I remember being on the call center floor and typing and seeing LOL come around off the screen for the first time and thinking, what the hell is that? Anyone know what LOL is? And they're like, no, look up a keyword and see if you can find it. No, nothing there. And we're like laughing out loud from across the call center. And it was like things that happened there, rolling on the floor, laughing out loud, happened in the call center from stupid things that were happening in the call center. So it was so much fun to watch. And then now you see your kids talking like that. And you're like, where did you learn this? And I'm like, I kind of remember being there.
That'll make you feel old when, like, yeah, I was there when it was invented.
I think that was the first time, and I look back at all these opportunities in my life where I seen the wave of technology, and I was part of it, but didn't realize it, and I just didn't take advantage of it. So I don't think any of us really knew what it was happening. Maybe some of the older people kind of got an idea, the ones that were like keeping the stock and kept buying more and more of it. But I don't think the rest of us young guys and young gals that were there, I have a ton of friends that I still talk to about it because that's what started my career. We all challenged each other at AOL to get our A+ for CompTIA. And I was the only one that did it. And I'm the only one still in technology, right? So they're like, damn, I really should have taken that challenge, Juan. We should have done it. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. So I don't think we knew it, right? And there's a lot of times in my career over the past history that I've seen a lot of things just explode, and I was like, man, I really should have taken advantage of that.
It's really interesting. You mentioned the CompTIA and the A+ exam. I mean, I knew that you're very heavily involved with CompTIA. I didn't realize how long you've actually been involved with that organization.
You know what's funny is that I remember taking that test, and I just did a podcast with CompTIA talking about this. And I remember the first time I failed because I come from a little bit of a, socioeconomic background, obviously being Hispanic and not growing up in a very well-to-do area. Technology wasn't something that I was technically supposed to be in, right? And I remember taking that test for the first time, and I failed it. And here we are all these years later, right? And now I remember the crowning glory was when I actually got to write the test. CompTIA invited me to help them write the test because I had done so much work on increasing my skills and my certification level over the years. And I kept taking my A+ every time they put out a new one. They kept asking, why are you doing that? And I told them, I'm doing it to challenge others. I'm taking the test to also take it with them. And so they actually invited me to come help write the test. I remember thinking, oh my God, I've reached the height of my career. I'm actually writing the test that I was the most afraid of all those years ago. So it's been super fun. I love CompTIA to death. It was such a huge portion of my career and all of the success that I have experienced. So it's been fun.
You know, and it reminds me, you know, not that long ago, just a few weeks ago, CompTIA did their annual ChannelCon
Yeah.
event, which obviously was online this year. And you were on a panel, I remember that Carolyn April from CompTIA led.
Yeah.
And you and some other folks were just kind of, you know, talking about this crazy year and how the channel has adapted to it and so on. So, I mean, you know, you mentioned before, you came into 2020 with a pretty robust managed services cloud computing kind of offer for your customers. How have things changed this year as a result of work from home and everything else happening?
It's interesting that you asked that question, right? Because we've been, and I think that this is the question. This is like that, you know, if you ever had a magic wand and you could wave it and you could see, I talked about in 2018, the future of technology, right? And what was the most important thing was that individual companies, we needed to start talking about enabling their mobile workforce, you know, really taking advantage of everything as a service and really looking at the way the future marketplace buys. So we started positioning ourselves in 2018 for that opportunity, right? You know, everything as a service and really looking at what the tools and techniques that were going to be necessary to enable the mobile workforce. So we had started implementing that. So when COVID hit, we were kind of set for the stage. And it was actually, to us, we had been rehearsing it for so long. We'd been talking about it. So our customers literally just were ready to rock. They didn't experience much turmoil at all. Matter of fact, we had a lot of customers shoot us emails saying, "My God, you gave us a competitive advantage over our competition because we literally, it was so seamless for us to just move home." One of the important things, and I talked about this on the, another podcast that I was on last week, and they asked me this similar question was, how did you deal with sales? Like, what did you guys do? Did you guys see any dip? Did you guys see any increase? You know, ImageNet as a company is primarily a print organization. You know, they're a $100 million print company. The print took a little bit of a hit, right? But the managed services piece didn't, right? The managed services piece, we saw an increase of opportunity. So for a lot of our managed services friends out there, I've talked to a lot of them. I do a lot of collaboration on the MSP 501. You know, I talk with a lot of people on the channel and keep pulses. Man, it seems like managed services companies kind of really thrive through this opportunity. And I personally was so excited because every single one of you guys out there that's in technology, finally, you know that we're being heard. Our customers are asking for solutions. They're looking for opportunities. They're positioning their money into technology fashions and cloud-based opportunities. So for us, even though we stopped selling on managed services, we said, look, we're going to help people out. We stopped pushing renewals. We stopped pushing hardware. We stopped everything. And we said, we're going to help. So for us, we actually saw an increase of people approaching us saying, hey, you know what, thank you for that great advice. I really would like to take advantage of that, because we really started going into educating them, keeping them in business versus trying to just go after more and more and more. So we really focused on trying to keep our internal customers happy during that time.
Now, you've been talking to your customers about mobility through the cloud and so on for a while. So, I mean, for the customers who, you know, take your advice and implement the technologies that you recommend, what does their environment look like? What's this sort of ideal cloud first, mobile first solution stack, if you will, that that you offer to those? I mean, you know, virtual desktops. I assume Microsoft 365.
Yeah.
What does the setup look like?
It's kind of funny you asked that, because about 3 years ago at one of the CompTIA A+ writing classes, I actually asked the group, let me ask you all a question. And if there was no more hardware for us to troubleshoot, if there was no more, if AI took our jobs away from us and we didn't have any opportunity for us to really, you know, need for us to troubleshoot physical hardware, what would we be doing? I said, you really need to stop and ask yourselves that question, because it's coming. I promise you, I've seen some of it. I know it's coming. And so all these questions that we're asking ourselves right now to write this test, to make it the most meaningful thing that we can do and make sure that the people coming in understand the concepts and that they are tested appropriately. A machine could do this, you know? And so that's a similar place, right? And to answer your question on the stack, that's where we're at, right? We're not really managing servers anymore. We're managing software-based platforms now, right? We're managing, you know, opportunities in the cloud, and we're managing applications more than we're doing anything else. So this is that moment where, for us, you know, a lot of our customers, and I have this conversation with my team all the time. What are we going to be doing when there's no more physical hardware? And that's really kind of where we're at, because we're migrating customers away. And every single time we take a piece of that hardware and stick it in the cloud, our monetary value goes down. Our contracts of managing that physical device and patch management and that value of the monitoring, maintenance, and management starts to dilute. So it's important for us to try to reposition that value in these opportunities, the way we manage their virtual infrastructures, right? And their cloud infrastructures. But to your point, you're right. Office 365 is it, right? SharePoint, everyone's moving file servers out there. Azure's are you know, on platform-based services is really where we're kind of moving at. Cloud-based, platform-based services, platform as a service opportunities. Everything's been shifting that direction. It's the mobility factor.
So do you find yourself, either because of what's been happening this year, or maybe even from a longer term perspective, do you find yourself having different kinds of conversations with customers these days? The level of the conversation, what you're talking about?
Yeah, I talk about this quite a bit, right? At Channel Partners Expo not long ago, I actually mentioned this similar thing, is that we need to move past the trusted advisor to the trusted partner. And I think that that's where we're aligning ourselves as that chief technology officer in these businesses. And we should recognize our responsibility to these organizations, that we are providing what now is called customer experience as a service, right? It's not just I'm delivering technology to support an entity that I'm doing business with. It's that I'm delivering a technology solution that is working through the entity that I do business with to provide an outcome to their end user customer, right? And that's the cool part about what we're doing, is that the technology that we're implementing is not just to keep your organization running. It's actually that pass-through experience to the other side, which that's where I think the ultimate value is derived, is that I'm helping you win more business because of the technology that I'm implementing into your organization, which is super cool, right? Because like now most technology people got in the game because they felt good about helping people, right? There's a hero method behind that. Like if I keep it up and running, I feel good about it, I've accomplished something. Now I can actually move the needle, and they'll actually spend more money with us because of the fact they're making more money, right? So I think that that's the opportunity, and that's the conversations that we're having with our customers. Is really, it's not about just keeping you up and running and just making sure that you continue to do business. It's how do we really make your business really hum using the technology that we're implementing.
So you worked at AOL. You were, in a sense, cloud before cloud was cool.
Sure.
You know, you were warning people years ago that the hardware business, maintaining hardware, is not a long-term, you know, value proposition. So you're seeing ahead. You have a history of seeing ahead, basically. So what's coming next? What's next year going to look like? What are the, maybe even just technology trends that you're most excited about looking forward?
You know, I think that for me, I'm going to be honest here, is that I know that what I'm going to be excited about is probably not something that everyone else is going to be excited about, but it's the fact that we're finally seeing AI really become prevalent in technology solutions, right? We're seeing a lot more chatbots. We're seeing a lot more AI ops on the back end to automate tasks that we really truly don't want to deal with, right? We don't want to be dealing with all of this noise that happens, right? That consolidation of opportunities that gives us true positives versus a bunch of false positives, and self-aware infrastructures that are actually able to, you know, identify issues not just on an internal threat, but, you know, a mobile device that's actually giving me some noise on the outside edge that I could never see before. So I think that the BI operations, you know, the business intelligence piece is really what I think that MSPs and technology in the channel is actually, we can start really tailoring those opportunities for our customers based on business intelligence and all of the AI operations that are coming into technology right now. I think that's where I'm most excited. I know that there's a fine line there because we do give up some of what we do today from a manual perspective, but I'm telling you guys, AI is hiring, and we're just needing to create the new opportunity for the future. We just redevelop what it is that we do and evolve with the technology is what I'm the most excited about. I cannot tell you how excited I am, because that was the reason we built AI, was to make our lives easier. Now we just need to incorporate it. Don't see it as a threat factor or a threat vector in your own personal life or your business. Embrace it, figure out how to use it. It's such a great tool. I mean, I've had a blast with it. I can't tell you everything that I'm looking at doing with it, but it's pretty cool.
Well, some people don't see it as a threat vector to their business. They see it as the rise of Skynet and a threat vector to their life.
This is true too, right? I mean, we are talking about that, but hey, you know what? Maybe our job is to control it. Maybe it's not implement it, right? Maybe it's that we're the new police, right? We're talking about this new regulation thing that's coming out. We need to regulate the technology as well, right? So maybe that's our new job.
It could be. It could be. And I, for one, welcome our new AI robot overlords when they hit. So
We want to get that on the record.
Right. We'll be the first to be subservient, Rich. As long as we get to keep doing the show, that's all that I care about. All right. Well, Juan, it's great to have you here. It's interesting stuff, and we're excited we got you for the whole show. And we're going to be looking to you for some advice and thoughts on some of the news stories we're going to go through, some of our articles. And of course, we got lots in this episode for you all out there listening and or watching. So we got some news stories from HP, an article we're going to talk about, an interview with Isha Yovel from Cato Networks. Yeah, I pronounced that right, Rich. Cato Networks. We recorded that earlier in the week, but we're going to put that in here for you to watch. That's going to be really good. Great interview. You'll want to definitely see that. And of course, we'll play 5 questions with Juan, and we got some other stuff as well. It's going to be a big show. Lots of great stuff. Strap in, because we're gonna get taken off. For those who are listening on a phone or a tablet, if you want to follow along with some of the news stories and articles we go through, go to the show notes page for episode 160. ChannelProNetwork.com is the website where you can find that. And then there you'll find links to all of the different stories so you can read along and get a little bit more detail, because we're just going to scratch the surface and kind of give our thoughts. If you're watching on YouTube, similar kind of deal, open up the description area and you'll find all the links to all of the stories that as we go through them, so you can follow along as well. So without further ado, Rich, it's a very HP heavy day, apparently. Not sure how it worked out that way, but couldn't be happier and more thrilled to have Juan on for this particular episode. And I know you're going to touch on why in a second. But Rich, HP has a new subscription hardware and services program for SMBs. Now, before you get started, who has been predicting for the last 2 years, like subscription hardware is where it's headed? Who, Rich?
Who would that be, Matt?
I don't know, but I think he's wearing a red shirt somewhere. So Rich, tell us about the new program. It looks really good, actually.
Yeah, well, and I mean, and I'll say that this is sort of the latest evidence of a larger trend, and HP in particular has been on top of the whole as a service hardware deal. I mean, for 4 years already at this point, and Juan will have much to tell us about in that regard, actually. But so what happened? The reason we have an HP heavy news week here is that HP held its annual reInvent conference for its partners yesterday. They held it online, of course. This was originally supposed to happen in person, I think in Southern California, if I remember right, in March. And this was one of the first conferences that got kicked back because of the virus. They wound up doing it online instead of in person this week. They had a ton of news. We'll be talking about a bunch of hardware products that they announced coming up later in the year, later on in the show. But we'll start out by talking about this new subscription hardware and services program for SMBs. Now, you know, they've been doing desktop as a service at HP, as I indicated before, for about 4 years at this point. It really started out as an enterprise-oriented kind of sell. It wasn't limited to bigger businesses, but that's kind of who they had in mind, I believe, and Juan will correct me if I'm wrong, when they initially did that. And they've been kind of moving in the direction of mid-sized and smaller businesses since then. What they did yesterday was announce something that is specifically from the get-go tailored at SMBs. And again, other businesses, if they're interested, great. But it's the SMB sort of business requirement that they had in mind when they created this offering, which they are calling HP Business Boost. And the idea is they're taking HP hardware, PCs, monitors, printers, accessories. They pull together a bundle of hardware And then they surround that with a whole series of services. You're paying for the whole thing on a subscription basis. So essentially, this is an as-a-service, financed, operational expense kind of way to procure IT. You're going to get the hardware, but you're also going to get proactive remote management. There is a repair service, so you can they will either pick up or and drop off hardware that needs to be repaired, or they actually will do on-site break fix for you. There's all of that is in the standard package. There's a sort of premium upgrade that you can purchase as well. If you do that, you get a security service, you get accidental damage protection, and some other kind of bonus things on top of the core offer. And they have the whole thing laid out. They basically identify two target audiences in terms of who the end user is. They're the sort of standard home and office users. And then there are, the power users and the architects and engineers who have more demanding requirements. And for each of those two audiences, they have what they call their good, better, and best bundle. So at the lower end, more affordable good bundle for, I believe, the standard home and office users comes in at $29.99 per user per month. And then it kind of goes up from there as you get into a better or a best scenario. If you have more robust requirements because you're doing a lot of CAD work or are a power user, those bundles are going to cost more as well. So, and this is something that, HP has been interested in, this as a service model, for a long time. It's also something that they and everyone else is observing in the marketplace and reacting to, that the end users increasingly want to buy all of their technology, the way that they have been buying their cloud services for a little while here. And so this, this is the latest example of a phenomenon that is going to continue happening on down the road. Now, before I ask, I'm very, very interested to get Juan's input on this program and on the desktop as a service program. And the reason for that is he's been immersed in this world for years and can provide perspective that I actually haven't been able to get from HP. But I want to point out before I do that, that the expression, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. I am pretty damn lucky, Matt. So, I mean, earlier this year, we had Scott Beck on the show as guest host, right? And a few weeks in advance, I said, hey, Scott, are you available? We'd love to have you on the show. Little did I know that he's a hardcore Kaseya user, and Kaseya made tons of news that week, and he was like the perfect guy to have on the show. A few weeks later, we had Luis Alvarez on. He's on the partner advisory board for Axient and ConnectWise. Axient and ConnectWise were in the news. It's like, boom, perfect. Luis is the guy. This, I invited Juan because I knew he would be an awesome guest host. And then I discover last night, he tells me an email, oh, actually, I helped him create desktop as a service. So Juan, you got to tell me about Business Boost, why it's significant to you, and how it sort of fits next to desktop as a service in your mind.
Well, so Business Boost and desktop as a service are similar, right? If you take a look at the way they have them structured, right? So Business Boost is, and I know that this, I've heard a lot of this in the channel space, this is going to be a competing product to, what managed services providers are doing. And I can promise you this now, it is not exactly the same. We do something completely different than what HP is providing in either of these two models, right? So Business Boost, if you look at it, and again, from what I understand of what they're doing, they're taking devices as a service and they're just adding in products, and then they're adding in the security, which makes it a complete package. Where HP DAS, if you will, or Tech Pulse is what they renamed it, was not necessarily devices as a service, but it was devices as a service packaged with a care pack, and then also proactive management. And I know we all hear proactive management are like, we do that. And I'm like, HP's proactive management is different, right? It doesn't actually do what you think it does. It doesn't do patch management. It doesn't do monitoring. Like, there's no tool that you can log in and monitor to see if it's up or down. Their proactive management is that they're using the analytics of the device and several key components to actually monitor the health of physical components within the product. And that is they're consolidating all of these opportunities and saying, okay, hey, when we have so many smart errors, we know that any numerous number of smart errors, that this drive is indicative of a failure. That's their proactive monitoring, right? It's completely different than what we think of it. Like, oh, well, you know, patch management, that's not it. So it's interesting to see HP doing this because, and going to the SMBs, I've been talking about this for a long time. The millennial market space wants to buy as a service. They don't want to own anything, right? They don't necessarily, they want to buy it. They want to consume it at the lowest cost point that they possibly can to provide the output that I need to, and that's get to work, right? So packaging all of these products like printers and monitors and headsets and PCs all together is what technically the channel needs, right? We need this packaging and pricing product so that we can take it and lay our services on top and then deliver it to the end user customer. So hats off to HP for actually getting it going. I know that this was a hard road for them to travel to kind of get their heads wrapped around how do we get HP financials, you know, to kind of take this and then, you know, offer it through a channel partner. There was some complexities for them to make that work, but overall, I think it's great for us out here in the channel.
Now, I mean, does this feel, I was certainly kind of positioning it before as a more SMB friendly version of TechPulse or desktop as a service. Is there something about this that looks more SMB appropriate than what they've been doing up until now?
You know, it does. I mean, the only real thing that it's doing is just spreading the payment out. They're building all the products into it, right? So they're putting SureClick in there and SureClick Advanced, which was their acquisition of Bromium, right? And that's really a neat product. It does a lot of things that meet the SMB requirements in regards to the way they do it, but it still requires some technical aspect to kind of manage that layer. There's definitely room for us to really provide that opportunity. And I don't know that this is much different from DAS, other than the fact that we just put together monitors and headsets and printers into this as a service methodology, right? So you can order your office in a box, if you will, now, but you still need somebody to set it up. So you still need somebody to monitor it. You still need somebody to manage it officially the way the channel would.
One of the interesting things about this to me, and we'll kind of come back to this theme, I don't believe that they designed this around the COVID-19 world, but it does kind of fit in there, because I was talking about how there's pickup and drop off on you know, broken machines. There's on-site break fix. That's on-site, you know, at an office or at somebody's home. So I mean, essentially, if you have work from home customers, this is kind of a nice fit, because they will go. It's very difficult for you as one MSP to be rolling trucks out to lots and lots of different homes.
Right.
They're willing to kind of step in and do a lot of that for you, it sounds like.
There are some pretty sweet spots there. I mean, we'll say this. So when analytics and proactive management, APM, actually kicks off an alert and says, hey, this hard drive is going to fail, it has the ability to order its own part. It has the ability to dispatch and say, hey, you know, hey, HP is going to give you, you know, they send you a little alert saying this product needs to be replaced. Please contact, you know, support. And then somebody comes and replaces the hard drive. I mean, there are some cool things that happen there. That you're right. A lot of MSPs that have large customers that are spread out everywhere. Anytime you roll a truck, it's an overhead expense, right? And so this is kind of one of those places where you can capitalize on the opportunity that, you know, somebody else is performing.
So Rich, a couple of questions. What did they say? You mentioned the pricing, and you said, you know, the bare bones package, and I like the way they kind of tiered it off, and I love the fact that they wrapped monitors and accessories into this. I've been screaming off the top of my head, like, this is the way to do it, because this is going to bring a lot more MSPs who left hardware behind. And Rich, how many people have we talked to on the show who were just like, you know what, I just don't do hardware anymore because of all of the complexities and the problems, and it's not always very profitable. And yeah. If you can turnkey sell something as a service right with this, bundled with your own stuff, this is going to get MSPs right back into hardware. Don't you think?
Yeah, well, no, I think it's a very, yeah, for people who have been turned off, you know, the hardware market by the margins and the complexity, and so this is like a really easy way to take care of that that need. And I mean, and it reminds me, as you're talking about that, of the Dell Expert Network, which we've spoken about on the program before, which is this partner program for, for sort of non-partners. If you are in the Dell universe, but you don't really have a hardware business, and yet you're getting, you have customers with hardware needs, you're getting hardware questions, Dell has actually created something for an MSP that allows them to kind of, support those hardware needs without necessarily having a hardware business of their own. And this isn't, parallel exactly to that, but it's an alternative. It's another way potentially for somebody who doesn't really want to get deep into hardware, for all the reasons, Juan, you were talking about before, to still satisfy those needs that your customers have in a manageable, clean kind of way.
Yeah, and Rich, you were mentioning the pricing. I've got a couple questions though, because one, you said, okay, bare bones basic, $29.99 a user. Now, is that like what you charge the customer, or can you is there markup on top of that? Is that what HP charges the MSP, or is that what you charge the customer?
I'm going to assume, I mean, as far as I know, this is only sold through the channel.
Okay.
So I assume this is what you're paying, and yeah, and
then you layer your stuff on top of that.
Exactly.
Okay. Cool. That works out well. And what did they say that the commitment and cycle commitment is, or the refresh cycle is for a particular user? Because I assume they're not going to want to roll all this hardware out to a desktop for a month. So are you committing to a year, 2 years, and then when do they refresh that?
That's a great question. I don't have the answer to that, actually. I don't know. And I don't know if it's, if you get options on that, you can do the 1 year, 3 year, whatever. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, interesting stuff for sure. So I'm going to throw it back to Juan. What here do you see that could be problematic for MSPs, or kind of a turnoff for MSPs?
Oh, trust me, I've heard a whole bunch of turnoffs. I've been down the road with this one for a while now. So, a lot of them don't see the light, right? They're like, why would I want to let HP into my business to allow them to take control of my customer relationship and control the paper on the back end? They're offering up services. This is giving them an insight into mine. If I start cross-selling into my customers, I'm kind of giving up a little bit. I've heard tons of complexity of why people wouldn't want to do this. And I get it, right? But at the same token, is hardware really your business, right? Or is it a lost leader? I mean, you have to really identify the type of business that you want to be, right? If you're a value-added reseller and that hardware is the only thing that you got and your customer list is 100% built on hardware sales, then maybe that's the wrong for you, right? If you're a managed service provider where it's just all about services and you're providing services and you're laying value on top, maybe this is the perfect opportunity for you, and you really don't care whether or not that HP has this relationship with your customer. So, I mean, it's really, I've heard it all over the place, right? From, managed service providers not fully understanding exactly what it is. I would say take a look at it, because when you see it, you can actually layer a ton of value into these opportunities. Plus, they're building their own knock and sock on the back end. I mean, this is a big company that's getting in the game here, right? So there are a lot of advantages of partnering with a company of this size that has the breadth of HP. I don't know that any of us could build anything that would be relatively similar, right? So competing with them is probably not the best option. And for me, I personally, I see all the positives because I've looked at this, I've tore this thing all the way apart, and I found where I said, hey, I can win here, here, and here. I mean, this, to me, I can find the wins in this thing. And it's supported by a brand that's well known, right? So I don't know. I can see both sides of the coin, but I would encourage everyone that has any issues with it, go take a look at it, find the opportunities in it.
I want to come back to one thing you said that I think is really important. And Rich, we've talked about this here and there, but those who've been in the business a while may not necessarily understand this is exactly what Juan said, is that the younger generation here, the millennial generation, they have no interest in owning this stuff. And actually, when you think about it, when you really think about it, if your business, by the time you buy computers, spend all that money in investment, what do you really have when they're done? They're just old boxes that aren't really useful anymore, right? So it makes a lot of sense to cycle this stuff, and then rather than having all this old hardware that you got to recycle or get rid of or sell off or whatever, it just gets taken away and new stuff magically appears. That seems like a win for most.
I would assume that it is. I mean, all of us have dealt with massive stockpiles of gear on the back end, and then what do we do with it? We'll end up doing the wrong thing and repurposing it and getting it back out into the field on accident for somebody that didn't want to pay for it, right? And we create our own problems, right? So if, in my own opinion, I mean, lessons learned over the period of time that I've been doing technology, I personally do not want to see an old device at all. Like, it's the bane of my existence. It's so hard to support. It's extremely difficult for us. I mean, it creates so much noise on infrastructures. It's just so much more work for us that are trying to move the needle forward to kind of keep supporting all this old noise. So get that old stuff out of there as fast as possible. I remember when we were working on the HP DAS product, I actually remember taking it to my young daughter and I said, hey, what do you think about this? Would you buy this and what would you pay for it? And I remember asking her, and that $20 range was like, that's about the most I'd pay, Dad. And I'm like, wow, really? That's not a lot of money. We got a problem. You know, so it's interesting to see how that shift changed. And in us, the older generation, we're like, hey, you know what? $500 wouldn't be bad for a PC. They're not thinking that way. So, you know, they don't want to own it. So what do we do about it, right?
Right. We're just smirking a little bit because I said, oh, there's no value in old stuff, even though in a little while I'm going to be hoisting up a gigantic ancient HP desktop to show off here on the show. So I'm probably the biggest hypocrite in the world for saying something like that. Right, Rich?
Yeah. Surrounded by old stuff.
Right. Exactly. I see no value in it, yet I still can't let it go.
Hey, it's part of it. It's nostalgia, man. It's how we got here, right? I have a 1957 Chevy Bel Air that I'm working on in my garage. You know how difficult that is to restore? Trust me, I understand. We do crazy things, and I'm one of them.
You gotta look to the future and still live in the past a little bit.
Live in the past.
I agree. All right. Well, we got another HP story we want to cover. Folks, definitely go check out the HP Business Boost news release that Rich wrote up here and get a little bit more detail. Rich, I'm also going to say this. I'm very glad that they didn't call it HP Business 360, right? Because or one business, because they could have gone that way here. And kudos to them for not.
Yeah.
Important stuff. Okay. HP, they've got more stuff to showcase. PCs and printers for the age of work from home computing. Sounds exciting, Rich. What did they show off?
So, you know, they a lot of what they announced at the reInvent event yesterday was new products, new hardware, new printers and PCs. You know, a whole bunch of different laptops and desktops and minis and so on. What stood out about it to me, and the kind of theme that I emphasized in the article I wrote about it all, is that, and this was what they were emphasizing too, right, is that a lot of this stuff is really well suited to this new era of business computing that we suddenly find ourselves in, where, like, right now, you know, most people are working far more from home than they are in an office, where, you know, and there's going to be work from home pretty much indefinitely. You'll see the balance shift over time, but people are still going to be spending a lot of people are going to be spending a lot of their work time from home, and there are just different requirements in that kind of environment. And in particular, what, you know, HP is hearing from its customers is people are looking for portable devices, lighter devices, smaller devices. If you're working on the kitchen table, you know, or some other space with limited space for hardware, you want something that is powerful but also compact. You probably don't want to deal with cables as much as you know you have been or were in the past. People aren't into that anymore. You're thinking a lot about performance and particularly networking or internet connectivity kind of performance, because you're probably doing a lot of video conferencing and so on these days. And so this shows up a lot in a lot of the different products that HP was showcasing yesterday. So, for example, the sort of the star product, I think, from the lineup that they talked about first and most prominently was this new HP ProBook 635 Aero G7. So 13.3-inch laptop, AMD based. There were a lot of AMD based products announced yesterday, by the way. And I remember last year at their reInvent event that pretty much everything business or meant for business that they introduced was on AMD, which I thought was significant at the time. Tons of AMD this year as well. So this new 635 Aero runs on AMD processors. It weighs in under a kilogram. It's apparently the first business class AMD-based laptop to do that. It's a very lightweight, gigabit speed Wi-Fi 6 on board, 4G LTE connectivity. So, you know, and this I thought was interesting. HP has, for a while, had products meant for the healthcare market, for the most part, that they emphasized, you know, can stand up to disinfecting wipes, because obviously in a healthcare environment, that's important. This device can too. They say you can you know, put a disinfecting wipe on this thing 1,000 times and it'll be okay. So another little sign of the times that they're, you know, thinking about that and talking about that kind of thing right now. I mean, there's so many products. I'll be curious kind of to see which ones maybe jumped out at you, Matt, but I'll just point to one other here if I can get to it quickly, which was there were a couple of different monitors that they announced that are really kind of tailored to the video conferencing scenario. So, you know, obviously tons of that going on from home these days. And the new, I just lost it. There it is. E24D G4 and E27D G4 conferencing monitors. One is a 23.8-inch device. The other one is a 27-inch device. And they both come with an integrated pop-up webcam, an integrated mic, and an attached speaker bar. So you basically get all the accessories, all the attachments that you need to do conferencing, kind of integrated with the hardware, no cabling involved, so you don't have to deal with any of that clutter. And then the other interesting thing about that they emphasize, it's got a technology in there that I believe they're calling HP EasyView, and it's a blue light filter that's supposed to ease eye strain. And part of the reason that HP called attention to it was just that their data indicates, and I think everyone's life indicates, that when you're working from home, you tend to work longer hours. You're probably spending more time in front of a computer these days than you used to, and that can lead obviously to more eye strain. And so they've got this blue light filter in these conferencing monitors. I assume we're going to see that technology kind of head into a lot of their other systems as well. So yeah, we could go on from there. There are a bunch of products that they announced, and repeatedly what they were emphasizing were the aspects of these technologies in terms of their size and their weight and the cabling and the connectivity that make them a good fit for working from home or from a hybrid arrangement where you're working from home and the office, which is probably what we're heading for.
Yeah, lots of good stuff. It's a very, very robust assortment of new things. You asked me what was going to stand out to me. I like the new 635 Aero G7. It looks really, really nice. I also like to see a lot of processor diversity in terms of AMD and Intel. And you're right. This is a lot of AMD in this lineup here, which is good. Now there's still some Intel stuff too, especially on the what do they put that Intel stuff in? I lost my see. You're losing your spot. I'm losing my spot. In the ProBook 430, 440, and 450. Those look pretty good. I think the 600 series looks a little bit nicer. There's two things I want to talk about. One is the EliteDesk 805 G6. We're going to talk about that a little bit later because the EliteDesk 800 G5 was going to be my museum or my tech pick this week. But even though it's not out until November, what the heck? We're just going to go ahead and foreshadow that something in here might be the tech pick later on in the show. However, I do want to talk about the two monitors you mentioned, and I'm surprised no one else has jumped on this yet, but building in conferencing stuff into a business class monitor is really smart, provided the camera is decent. And we'll have to see what it looks like. But why is it to this day, desktop monitors, they generally don't build in cameras? Why is that?
I'm not quite sure why they haven't done it. I personally would love that if that was the case, right? I have 3 of them here in front of me, and I would love to have 3 different views of a camera shot so that I wasn't always staring at my corner office, right? So, I know that over time, they tried this not long ago. If you remember when HP created the HP All-in-One, their first versions of it were all inclusive and they had a camera in it. And the one thing that no one ever used, again, it went consumer, right? It was never business related, right? We didn't see a lot of that. And then they did that flip camera. There was the one that, you could actually it spun around on the top of the monitor. So I don't know why they didn't actually continue it, but God, to your point, I think that you're right on the money. I think that that's a very smart idea right now, because there is no, I mean, you really can't get a good quality camera, like you said, to your point, as long as it's good. If it's good, HP's been pretty known for having good cameras, but that's my thought.
Yeah, it is. It seems to me like, maybe you're right, because when you're talking about some of the various things that they've tried in the past, I do remember some. But you're right. It was always usually in the case of all-in-ones. It wasn't just like you could buy a monitor with a camera built in. I can't think of many examples of that. But in this day and age, with Skype and Zoom and Teams and kids doing conferencing and all that kind of stuff, like a monitor with a built-in camera would have been a lifesaver for a lot of people.
I personally would have loved it.
Yeah, I'm thinking my kids are here for e-learning right now and I'm thinking, and the school sent them like these little tiny Chromebooks. But of course, like this is my house. They don't want to stare at a little tiny Chromebook. Like they're used to having monitors on top of monitors everywhere. And the camera was the problem, because you can't get a webcam right now to save your life, at least not a good one.
Right.
So like they have their little Chromebook set up so they could use the camera. And there's this nice PC with all these screens there, and then they are staring at that because the camera's built in. Smart move. And I think we're going to see more of this, because remote learning and video conferencing, even for the consumer, but especially for business, is not going away.
I agree.
So, Rich, they does also introduce a new LaserJet Enterprise 400 SKU. They didn't say a whole lot about that. Was that an interesting printer? I didn't get a chance to look at that up.
Well, the most interesting thing about it, at least in the context that we're talking about here, is again the scale and the sort of appropriateness for using that in the home. And I mean, it's interesting. And just as a bit of an aside, I had a news story that went up on the website this week. We're not talking about it on the show this week, but I was talking recently with an executive from Epson. And we were talking about, it was like an A3, like a big set of printers that Epson recently came out with. But I asked some broader questions about market conditions right now. And he said that the smaller, you go back a year basically, and most businesses are really kind of looking to consolidate around a smaller number of these bigger A3 kinds of devices. And they were really kind of trying to avoid the smaller A4 desktop kinds of products, because they just didn't want lots of printers spread all over the office. Now, all of a sudden, everybody's working from home. HP released some data yesterday at the event that, according to some survey research that they did, 84% of customers they talked to said that they need a printer to do their job. Maybe not all the time every day, but they cannot effectively do their job still without some printing. And now that means you're going to have to be printing at home. And so these smaller printers all of a sudden are like the bright spot in a market that, as you were saying, Juan, in the print world has had some ups and downs this year.
Yeah.
The return of cartridges.
No.
so many people got rid of printers, so they don't want to buy cartridges anymore. And now they're coming back because we need them. We need them again.
You'd be surprised when you need a print, when you can't print and you need a print. It's a run to the local store to go grab something.
It is. And I do want to point out, because we talked about it on the show a bunch of times, but that the Epson EcoTank series, which, it's no shocker, I'm a big fan of, and we have several here in the company that we use and love. But I was correct that they were going to start a trend, Rich, because HP has a tank-based printer, inkjet printer now. I believe Brother has one, or no, maybe it's Canon, but like they're every line I'm starting to see have like this tank-based printer. So maybe if you're gonna go buy a printer, you might want to look at those and not kill yourself on ink cartridges for $60 a crack every month.
So before I forget, because that's a great segue, we're talking about subscription-based everything, and we're talking about printers. One of the things HP talked about yesterday, and they didn't actually talk about it as much as I would have expected. It sounded like a more interesting announcement to me than you guessed based on the amount of attention they gave it. But you know, they have had for a while now this program called Instant Ink. So if you have an HP inkjet printer and you use the Instant Ink service, they will kind of keep track of levels for you, and they'll just send you ink, replacement cartridges when they see that you need it. And they've got like over 8 million people signed up on this thing right now. It's been very popular, very successful for them. They're going to be doing something very similar for toner, for LaserJet toner. And I don't think they said exactly when that's coming, but it is coming, that they will have a service where they'll keep track of the toner for you, and they'll just send you. And the other thing I don't know is, we've spoken before about the tank-like toner printer product that HP introduced earlier this year. So I don't know if that's part of this offer, or if we're just talking about the traditional toner replacement cartridges or what. But that Instant Ink experience, if you like it out there, folks, is coming to toner-based printers as well down the road.
Boy, Juan, I bet HP loves nothing more and is happy as a clam to watch your ink level in your inkjet printer and send you cartridges when the printer says it needs them. That's a win for HP there, folks. I'm not going to necessarily say it's a win for you.
I'm sure. I mean, when it arrives at the door, I'm sure, and it's auto. I mean, it just builds your card too, right? So you may get one that you didn't need.
It's very possible. So, Rich, I believe you had another HP question that maybe wasn't completely related to this. What is that?
Yeah, well, it kind of occurred to me really as we were talking here. So just a few weeks ago, Juan, we did an interview segment with Christoph Schell from HP. And this was right when they announced, or a couple of weeks after they announced Amplify, which is their brand new, very different, very interesting partner program. You are a big time HP partner. So I thought before we move on past all this HT conversation, I would just get a first impression from you about Amplify.
It's interesting that you asked that question, right? Because I've seen it. I actually, as a matter of fact, got to drive through it yesterday. And it's an interesting program, right? I think that what HP is doing is actually innovative in regards to what their trajectory is in the channel. I love the fact that I'm seeing this stir from a major manufacturer that is actually trying to align themselves a little bit differently in the channel. I'm a big channel advocate. I think that the channel obviously is what drives business, and I'm a huge advocate for it. But that being said, I saw it yesterday. I actually got to dive into it a little bit and took a look at, all the different levels that you can land in. I tell you what, it's much different than the old HP partner program. It's much different, right? You got services in there now. You got these different metrics of where you need to be in order to get to certain places, and their revenue threshold limits are much different. It felt like a different HP to me, and that's where I think that it took a lot of gumption from HP to make this change, to say, hey, we're really going to start investing a lot in the channel, and this is a good for instance of it. So I felt like it was a good representation, and I really, hats off to HP for actually doing it, because not a lot of companies are looking to do that, right? They're not looking to, align themselves a little bit more and give up a little bit more margin to a partner like HP is.
I mean, we spoke about it on the show when it was announced, and what feels so progressive about it to me, I mean, in a way, they have set the model for a next generation hardware manufacturer partner program, where the old school model, which still predominates in the industry, is very transactional, and it's how many boxes you move, and they understand that whole business really isn't where they as a company want to be. It's much more about solutions and business outcomes, and that's what the customers care about. And so they need a channel that can do that with them and for them. And they ground up. They looked at what the customer wants, ground up, they build a partner program that gets them what they need to meet that demand, that requirement. And like you said, it looks very, very different from traditional, you know, HP's traditional partner program or any other hardware maker's partner program. But I have a hunch that's where more of these companies are going to be going, because that's where the market's going.
I have a feeling we're going to see that, Rich. That's a good prediction. Matt, you might want to write that one down. Rich has got a prediction on this one.
It's a pretty good prediction. I also predict that they're going to start requiring MSPs to subscribe to Instant Ink for every deal.
Yeah, this could happen.
Very good. All right, Rich, why don't we roll past news here, unless there's anything else that we'd like to talk about. We're going to talk about that EliteDesk a little bit later in the show. Anything else in here you want to talk about before we move on?
I think we're good to go.
All right, why don't we go ahead and shift gears to a story by you, in fact, called Go Big or Go Home. But my first question, though, is if I don't go big, do I not get to go home? Or can I still go home even if I don't want to be big? Can I if I go big, do I have to go home? Can I still like go to the bar?
Hey.
Yeah. Well, I guess it is a dilemma if you don't want to go home. The implicit advice is go small if you don't want to go home.
Go small and then to the bar. Now, this also doesn't imply like a transportation mechanism. Like, do I go home via car? Do I have to walk? Is there like a bicycle or an Uber involved? How does that work?
This is what happens when I'm working too fast. I just don't think these things through, you know?
I'm a detail-oriented guy, Rich.
Yeah, I just left too many holes out there.
All right, so tell me here. This story is about the struggle that MSPs are facing as sort of the smaller MSPs as they're starting to compete with these giant now regional, sometimes even national conglomerate MSPs or groups like the 20 who we've talked about before and have had on before, where they're all independent MSPs, but they kind of all act as one, and it's very difficult to compete with. So this is, I believe, what you're talking about, not actually about traveling to your residence.
Or just, you know, physically getting big so you don't have to go home. Yeah, that would be a weird story. This is not that.
Right, because you could physically get big. That just requires many, many trips, not to home, but usually to like Wendy's or McDonald's or something.
Right. You know. It does work, actually.
Big butt, go home. Maybe that's what it is. Okay, sorry, continue, please.
So, you know, and the big story, the big theme here is one that we've touched on this show and obviously the ChannelPro website a whole bunch in the past, which, as you say, is the emergence of these regional and national MSPs. Private equity money is flooding into managed services right now. The investment world has realized how big an opportunity, how big a market already, but how big a market potentially managed services can be. And there are people out there who are creating these very large MSPs as a result of that. And that has, an unavoidable set of implications for smaller MSPs out there. It doesn't spell doom, doesn't mean it's the end of the road for you if you're a smaller MSP, but you do have to kind of think about what you are going to do differently, what you may need to do differently now that you are potentially competing with these much, much bigger firms with economies of scale that they can draw on and underprice and all that other kind of good stuff. And there are a number of different ways to deal with this, you know, and you can sell your business and get out if you don't want to have to deal with this at all. You can cultivate a niche. If you are the best MSP in your area for a very particular vertical industry or piece of a vertical industry, you know, you will have stickiness with your customers. But there are also strategies that we talk about in this article for either getting big yourself and competing that way, or getting some of the attributes of a big company so that you can compete effectively with these larger firms. And you mentioned the 20. I tell a story in here about a member of the 20 who, very, very early on, I mean, I think this was within a year of starting his business. Business is still operating essentially out of his house. You know, he doesn't even have an office yet. He's competing against this very large firm for a very nice customer account. And very, very late down the competitive process, the customer says, "Hey, we'd like to come visit your headquarters and the other guy's headquarters and just get a good feel for, you know, your scale and your ability to handle our needs." You know, his office is his basement, right? Like, I can't have them over to the house. But he's a member of this organization, the 20, which is a co-op. You know, all the member MSPs are independently owned, but they pool resources, they share tools and so on. So they have some of the characteristics of a larger firm. And he was able to go to this customer and say, well, you know, I'm part of this organization. Our headquarters are in Plano, Texas. And, you know, you want to go there, they'd be happy to show you around. But really, it's kind of unnecessary. And it worked. You know, it's like from the customer standpoint, you've got everything I need. You have the breadth of offerings. You've got the scale. You know, I don't really need to see your headquarters anymore. And so he got the deal and was able to fight off this company much bigger that had this fancy downtown office and so on. And so, you know, we talk about 4 particular ways that you can kind of do this this sort of thing to compete, scale up and compete with these larger firms. And that's an example. You know, there's always organic growth, right? You can really invest in sales and marketing and just get big that way. You can get into the mergers and acquisitions game yourself, get big that way. You can join an organization like the 20 or like the ASCII group, for example. I mean, all the members of the ASCII group are independently owned and operated businesses, but there too, they're sort of pooling resources. They're leveraging collective buying power to get some of the scale that these larger firms have. So the article in question here is really just about some of those techniques that don't involve eating Wendy's every day for going big so that you don't have to go home.
Could you imagine the conversation he had with that customer who wanted to see his headquarters? Like, hey, have you ever heard the expressions about going big or going home? Because guess what? You're going to have to come to my house.
That's right.
Can I get you an Uber? So it's good. One, I mean, this is affecting lots of MSPs out there now, especially as there's so much consolidation. What do you think about some of the strategies outlined here?
I think they're all legit. I mean, every one of those strategies is reasonable, right? I mean, we created ours from nothing, right? I actually love to tell the story of how we created ours from a bar table napkin, me and my IT director, and we just went and created something special. You know, we created now $10 million MSP, and it took us 4 years to do it, right? So we've done the bootstrapping. This is my second instance of creating an MSP. So I'm not unfamiliar with actually creating very successful, highly profitable companies, but you can do it that way. Trust me, there's plenty of business out there to do it on your own. You know, you can go to any bank, right? As long as your contracts are highly profitable, they'll look at that and they'll give you a loan. You can go buy somebody. Now, I will say this, I've bought a couple MSPs. It's not as easy as it sounds. So, I mean, the acquisition opportunity, although you're seeing a lot of this consolidation, it's kind of interesting to see the inner workings of them, because I talk with a lot of them and I'm like, so what are some of the gotchas on what you just did? Because I've bought 3 now. So I know the complexity. It's hard. It's hard to change cultures, to change operations, to change the way they do things and consolidate tools and stacks and all these opportunities. If you don't know what you're doing, it may seem like, you know, a partnership's a great opportunity. Hey, you know, we're going to be bigger. We're going to be able to buy more. We're going to be able to do these things. And then you realize all the effort that it takes and the expense that it takes to do all that maybe wasn't all the things that you thought it was going to be. And on the other end of the stick, you know, getting consumed by somebody else is, you know, an exit strategy. So I think that, again, back to understanding where you're going with your business, right? Whether you're going to be one type of business or not, you also need to understand what your exit strategy is. I know I talked about this in the Accidental Entrepreneur, where we discussed the fact that we found something that we loved and it grew into this major business, but we had no business sense, right? And I think that part of a business plan is understanding your exit strategy. You really need to understand where you're going, how you're getting there, and what happens when you do get there, right? So if you're at a profitable state, is it time for you to retire, right? So there's just 3 different opportunities that you can do to get to where you want to go. But really, honestly, you need to throw that rock and say, okay, that's where I want to be, and then go there, right? So this is a fun time for MSPs, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's interesting what you were talking about there too, because it pops up in the article. Actually, one of the people I interviewed for the article is an MSP named Carl Bickmore, who's actually been a guest host on the podcast, and he said, I mean, pretty much exactly what you said too. You know, the organic growth strategy is time. It takes time to grow that way. Whereas acquiring another company and just acquiring that list of customers is much, much faster, but it also tends to be more expensive and time consuming. And so there's a trade-off there that you kind of have to consider. If you want to get big fast, you know, acquisitions is an option that'll get you there, but anticipate some serious investments, not just of money, but of time and headaches.
Well, especially if the company you're acquiring is really likes McDonald's and you like Wendy's, you got to iron that stuff out in advance, because
there's a lot of due diligence there, Matt, to your point, that you need to be doing to make sure that that thing is as close to what you're doing as possible. And if it's not, you got to be ready for a ride. I mean, it's like, oh, well, that's an underperforming MSP. Well, trust me, it's gonna be a rough road.
That it is. And for anyone who wants to listen to that episode with Carl Bickmore, that is episode 145. The Security Marmoset is that particular episode. So make sure you check that one out. Well, Rich, there's so much in here that it's a very big topic to cover. One, if you were going to give one piece of advice, kind of based on the options here, or maybe an alternative option for staying competitive against larger companies or getting bigger, what do you recommend?
Stop being cheaper. You know, understand your value. I talk about this all the time. The way that we've gotten to where we're at, we've been competing against giants our whole time. And giants are now asking us what we're doing different, why we're growing so fast. How did we get 375% growth in the last 24 months? How are we growing so fast? And the reason we did that is because we perfected our operation. We weren't about selling hardware. We were about selling value from the day one. Our product, when we go to our customers, they understand our offering. They see how they win with us, because they can go to any social media outlet and they can see that we're having conversations about technology and advancement and moving things forward. They've won with us before they get to the deal table. Number two is understanding the needs of the customer and really working with them to provide those technology solutions that we've been talking about this whole time on advancing their business, that customer experience as a service. You need to build the trust with them on how they win with you, right? And at the end, it's building those relationships and really giving them a culture, a product, and a company that they want to do business with, right? If they feel like they're winning with you, they feel like they know what they can trust you, and you're actually doing exactly what you say, they're going to stay with you. And that's the real secret sauce, I think, that I would give as advice, is just do the right thing and really make sure that you're working on their outcome. Yeah,
excellent advice. Very good stuff. We're out of time for the first segment. We're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we've got an awesome interview lined up for you with Ishai Yovel, the SMO of Cato Networks. We recorded this early in the week, so when you see, if you're watching on YouTube, there's going to be some wardrobe changes with me, probably. Rich always looks the same. He somehow manages to pull that off really well. But it's because we recorded it early in the week, but it is a really, really good interview. Juan was not there for us on that one, so he won't be there, but he will be back with us after the interview in part 3 when we go through some other things. So stick around for this interview. You won't want to miss it. We'll be right back. And welcome back to ChannelPro Weekly Part 2. We've got a great guest interview lined up for you this week. Very excited to have him here. Cato Networks is the world's first SASE platform, converging SD-WAN and network security into a global cloud service. There's been a lot of activity in this space over the past year, and here to discuss that and more is the Chief Marketing Officer at Cato Networks, Ishai Yovel. Welcome, Ishai.
Hello, Matt. Great to be here.
It's great to have you on. For those who may not know a little bit about Cato Networks and about you, tell us a little bit about you, where you're from. It's pretty interesting, and what you do there.
Sure. So I've been with Cato Networks since day one. We've been around for 5 years. I'm based out of Tel Aviv, Israel, where our co-founders are, but we are a global organization, over 240 people. We have a significant US presence, but we're selling all over the world, in the US, in Europe, in Asia, partly because we're a global company and we're serving global organizations. We have to be everywhere. I run marketing for Cato. And kind of our innovation, or a new idea that we came to the market, every startup has to have one of those, was the convergence of networking and security in the cloud. So if you think about how this world is even today, is that we buy point solutions for everything. We have a networking box like a router or an SD-WAN appliance. We have separately a security box, maybe a firewall, or something like that, or we may have a cloud service for security. And all of these things have to be integrated and managed by customers. So we basically came out with a platform that covers all these requirements in a single solution, single management. That's the kind of the unique thing about Cato, and we'll talk more about that and the markets that we serve later.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, one of the reasons I was really, or have been really looking forward to this conversation is, I mean, based on that description you just provided, you guys are, you know, right in the heart of the SD-WAN market. You have been since you created the company. It's core to your vision. And SD-WAN is one of those markets out there that it's growing enormously. That, you know, and I'll cite some statistics here. The Del Oro Group at the beginning of this year issued some numbers that the SD-WAN market grew 64% and surpassed $1 billion for the first time last year. That's last year, and we'll talk a little bit about how some of what's been going on this year might even have accelerated that a little bit. But 64% growth just last year, huge market. Barracuda did some research. 23% of the companies they surveyed have already deployed SD-WAN. 51% are either in the process of deploying it or planning to deploy it. So, I mean, this is a huge technology out there. And I'm just really interested kind of to get a perspective from somebody like you on why that is. So, I mean, what from a big picture perspective, we'll get into the 2020 perspective in a bit, but from a big picture perspective, what's driving that growth and that adoption in SD-WAN right now?
So I think, you know, probably the biggest driver is the increased use of the internet and the cloud by organizations. So if you think about how network traffic flows in an enterprise, it used to be that all the applications and all the data was hosted in a data center. So we would connect all of our branches, all of our people to that data center, and all the traffic will flow, if you visualize that, east-west, right? It will go from the branch to the data center where the applications are. And we have dedicated technologies that were built to enable that, namely MPLS. That's the connectivity platform that is built to connect a branch to a data center, a physical data center. What has been happening in the last 10 years is there is cloud migration, or the increased use of the internet. So the traffic now goes to public cloud services like Office 365, Salesforce, Box, Dropbox. All that traffic doesn't have to go to the data center anymore. It has to go to the internet. And this means that our network is changing. We no longer want all the traffic to go from the branch to the data center. We need to go to the internet. And this is where SD-WAN comes in. SD-WAN is a kind of a bridge technology that can connect multiple last mile access links. One can be MPLS, another one can be internet. And it's smart enough to say, okay, this traffic in the branch needs to go straight to the internet, or it should continue to go to the data center. So SD-WAN is the brain that manages which traffic needs to go where, and it kind of enables this cloud migration. And this is why everybody's adopting it, because they want to be able to connect more effectively, more efficiently, in a better performance to the cloud and to the internet. That's the transition that is happening in the business that is driving the change in the network.
So, I mean, what are the performance and the efficiency advantages that people get with SD-WAN?
So if you think about, let's say we try to use the old way to do the new thing, okay? So we would create something called the trombone effect. It means that the traffic from the branch has to go to the data center just to exit there to the internet. Now, why do we want it? We want it because the security in this old enterprise network doesn't exist everywhere. It's not available at the branch. It's only available in the center, in the data center, in headquarters. So if I want to go to the internet, I need security. I need something that will look at the traffic, figure out if there's bad stuff in it, in and out. And therefore, the branch traffic has to go from the branch to the data center and then exit to the internet on its way to the cloud from these data center firewalls. This is a very long way. What we want is we want the traffic to go straight out at the branch, okay? So SD-WAN says, okay, I'm going to add an internet link, internet last mile from an ISP, in addition to my MPLS link, and send the traffic straight away. So this is the fundamental kind of split of the traffic. Obviously, we need security available in the branch, and that's a separate discussion. But what's important to understand that this change in traffic flow, meaning internet traffic goes out at the branch directly to the internet, immediately creates new requirements for security. Okay, so I now need to secure traffic that I previously secured in the data center. Now I have to secure it at the branch level. So maybe I put a small firewall, or I put some cloud-based security in order to protect the traffic that the SD-WAN sends out directly to the internet. Okay, so these are two things that are actually coupled very, very strongly. What it means is if I'm selling SD-WAN, I need to be ready to have a security conversation immediately. Okay, so if I'm a channel, I want to sell SD-WAN as a way to address this MPLS transformation, meaning MPLS no longer good because I want to go straight to the internet. I want SD-WAN to manage that split of the traffic. The customer next question will be, what about security? Okay, I'm just sending traffic straight to the internet. What protects it? What secures it? I don't want to send traffic back to my data center. It's called backhauling or tromboning. I don't want that. So that's basically the next thing will be, okay, how do I secure it? And then security solutions exist in different shapes and forms, and we can talk about it more. But that's basically the answer to this question.
And so, I mean, that need that you just identified there, I mean, that is pretty much the essence of the vision that brought Cato Networks into being in the first place. So, I mean, what has been your strategy for addressing the security requirements associated with SD-WAN?
So the way we built our solution is with an edge device that does the SD-WAN capability. The SD-WAN responsibility is mostly to decide which last mile link should get the traffic. Is it going on the MPLS? Is it going on the internet? Is it going to go on wireless 4G LTE in case there is a failure in the location? So these are just networking decisions, right? Where do I going to put the next packet? But then there is security. So what we did is we actually sent all the traffic coming out of this edge device over the last mile that the customer provided to a cloud service. We built a global cloud service that is doing all the heavy lifting on security. So the traffic goes out of the branch to the Cato cloud, and that's where the SD-WAN kind of finishes its job. And then it's being inspected in the cloud for malware, for phishing, intrusion prevention. All these layers are operating in the cloud. Now, it's all managed in one area. So when the customer says, okay, I'm having this SD-WAN, I'm sending traffic to the internet, how do you secure it? We said it's simply going to go through our security layer. You don't have to look for another solution or integrate or do other things. It's already there. The other advantage is that it's scalable. It's in the cloud. It means that we can handle the capacity that the customer needs without the customer need to worry about it. For example, if I have a 100 megabit link today in my branch and it's supported by a particular appliance, a particular security appliance from the security vendors, if I want to go from 100 to 400 megabit because there is growth, there's more people, there's more requirements, I may have to upgrade my appliance. I may have to upgrade this physical infrastructure that sits in the branch in order to accommodate this new load. In the cloud, it doesn't work this way, right? It's basically elastically scalable, and it simply absorbs the new capacity and still delivering the same security capabilities the customer bought. So there's less friction, less sizing, less kind of planning, less expenditure. So it's very, very efficient from a customer standpoint. So this combination of doing a device that does SD-WAN at the edge and then doing security in the cloud creates a combination that addresses the need to do SD-WAN plus security, which is the core requirement that we are talking about right now, which is actually, when you think about it, it's part of a broader story, which is network transformation, right? When the customers think about it, what they are doing here is they're not just injecting a box into the edge of the network, they're changing the network itself because the traffic doesn't go in the same way, it doesn't go to the same places, it doesn't have the same security requirements, it's no longer my little pool, like my branch, my data center, my applications, my servers, suddenly it goes all over. This is a drastic change. And this is why SD-WAN is so powerful, right? When you look at the market and you see all this traction, it's because everybody is moving from on-prem to the cloud. They don't have to move 100% to the cloud. Even if they move 20% for the cloud, it's already an environment that needs something like SD-WAN, something like cloud-based security, because 20% is a big chunk. Could be important systems, critical systems, etc. So that's how we do it. Gartner coined a nice sentence around this. It said, cloud if you can, edge if you must. Okay, so do cloud first. That's the best place to deliver these capabilities because it's scalable, manageable. The vendor takes care of everything. No more patching, no more upgrades. It's all done automatically. And then you put on the edge what you absolutely have to put in the edge, which is the SD-WAN device, because there's no other place you can make the decision which link to use. So that's the strategy we took on that.
So, I mean, it's interesting hearing you describe that because the network transformation that you were talking about and the migration to the cloud, these are obviously longer term trends, all of which have been radically accelerated this year, basically because of the pandemic and work from home arrangements, et cetera. So, I mean, how have events this year changed the SD-WAN landscape? And how maybe, I mean, to what extent is SD-WAN even more relevant in an environment where people are working from home?
So I think you have to be, the truth is kind of my view on that. And actually, it's not just my view. I think Gartner also noted that in some research. SD-WAN is branch technology. And people left the branch. They left the branch intermittently for certain periods. Obviously, there are many more people working from home than in the branch. This in general could slow down SD-WAN a bit, but because MPLS contracts are expiring and an MPLS contract expiration is the driver for SD-WAN, you still buy SD-WAN technology because you don't want to renew with your telco for MPLS. You still want the new network for the time people will come in. So what I think, two things happened in the space. One is that some vendors stepped in and said, we're gonna deliver SD-WAN boxes to people's homes. So let's extend the SD-WAN network to people's home with appliances. The other trend, which I think you can see in results from companies like Zscaler, which is up to 100% this year, if you look at their stock, is remote access, which is something we do as well. And I'll explain how it's, why companies like Zscaler and Cato are uniquely positioned to address it, address remote access. So the question is, how can I deliver the same network optimization and security capabilities that you got in the branch? How can I give it to you in the office, at home? This is a big challenge. And it actually has nothing to do with SD-WAN per se, because if I don't have the SD-WAN box at home and not behind the SD-WAN box, I can't get those benefits. And this is where cloud-first architectures play a huge role. Because if I do most things in the cloud, the fact I moved home keeps many of the capabilities that I got in the office available to me at home. So, and that's the advantage of cloud-based architecture. So We have a remote access capability using a client or clientless access. So you have a software client you install in your PC. It connects you to the Cato cloud, and all the services and global optimization, traffic optimization that we do for people in the branch are now done for people at home. That's actually a huge benefit. And the fact that it's in the cloud can work at scale. That's the second challenge. So if you used to have remote access solution via something called VPN, which is a product that provides remote access, traditionally it was serving a very small percentage of the business, maybe the sales force. So if I have 1,000 people in my organization, maybe 100 people use remote access because they're on the road. Suddenly, I have 1,000 people that need remote access. Okay, I want to give remote access to everyone. And if I used to deliver it with a box, so let's say I have a firewall in my data center that was giving VPN services to the people that needed it, now I need to upgrade that firewall. I need to add another one, just scale it up. It's just difficult. So if you go with a solution that is cloud-based and cloud scale, you simply throw your user into this thing and it just works. And that's essentially the story. Now, so that's another thing that we have done from the beginning is to say remote access, and I'm talking about 2015 now. So remote access is an essential component of network transformation. We refer to it as the all-edge architecture. Why would I want to give preferential treatment to the branch edge? Why not to the person edge? Okay, why wouldn't I give strong security or optimization for the network traffic coming from a mobile device or a laptop or a desktop in someone's home or in a hotel room versus people in the branch? And this is why we architected the system instead of putting all the capabilities into the branch appliance, like some SD-WAN companies did. We put most of them in the cloud, so they are available to all edges. Okay, that's how we think about it. They're available to the branch edge, the person edge, and the cloud edge. If you want to connect an Amazon data center or an Azure data center, all of these edges also need network optimizations. They need SD-WAN, they need security. So that's essentially it. So when I think COVID, I think it's at best neutral for the SD-WAN business, meaning people that wanted SD-WAN continue with SD-WAN because they have a timeline. There is a clock ticking on the current network infrastructure. Worst case, companies slow down, they defer. They basically freeze the IT spend, they keep things as they are, and they just continue. So the only areas that grow are the areas of work from home. Okay, so how do I enable my workforce to work from home? How do I do remote access? How do I do it at scale? How do I do it quickly? How do I keep them secure? Because at home they're not that secure. So how do I strengthen this work mode? I expect I think definitely as COVID kind of moves out, or if there's a vaccine or people go back to the office, that those projects will restart. So the trend itself is intact. Right now, there could be some kind of a delay that that if you have a good remote access story, you don't feel as much as if what you have is only branch story. Again, a branch story right now doesn't have the same kind of glamour that it used to have. Hopefully, it's going to change for everybody's sake.
Now, the home kind of remote access technology that you're talking about there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is that your instant access product?
Correct. That's the instant access product. It actually has two flavors. One is truly instant in the sense that you don't have to install anything. VPN used to have that too. So if you need to access web-based applications, you can use your browser to log in and then get a portal with all the applications. You click on the icon, you go to the application. But if you need to access FAT client, meaning applications that don't use the web, they use proprietary protocols, then you need a client, which basically takes all the traffic from your machine and send it to the Cato POP, where it's secured, and then it's routed to the place where it needs to go. So remote desktop, SAP, ERP type thick clients, there's all kind of applications in the enterprises that require this. Yeah, so instant access, again, the idea is that instead of having, if you look at big companies, they have a portfolio of products, right? They have remote access products, they have SD-WAN products, they have security products. Sometimes they have them in appliance flavor, sometimes they have it in a cloud flavor. It's a portfolio strategy. So from a customer standpoint, they still buy product A, product B, product C, they deploy them separately, they manage them separately. With Cato, because it's all conceived architecturally at the same point in time, we built the solution to address all these use cases out of the gate. It's just easier to manage. One console, one set of policies, everything with self-service. It's very, very easy to roll out. And also it's very gradual. So for example, we have customers that bought us only for remote access. So if you think about it, let's say 1,000 users, actually it goes up to, there are customers with 5,000, with 7,000. What they do is they connect their data centers in the cloud and on-prem with our SD-WAN technology. Okay, so they have SD-WAN appliances in the data center and in the cloud. And then they have 7,000 clients that deploy in self-service. It's an email blast that goes to the user, they click on a link, they install a client, and that's it. So you don't actually have to touch your MPLS network. You don't have to deploy SD-WAN in all branches. You just connect all your users to the Cato cloud, and from there, they get to the applications they need in the cloud and in the data center. Okay, so that's an example of a remote access COVID-oriented deployment that doesn't change anything in the network, in the core network, which is right now maybe not used so much. Think about it, like MPLS investments or security investments in the branch not being used. It's tough. This is like, it could be millions in infrastructure or even more sitting there and just doing nothing. And I think it's another indication why cloud is important. Maybe I'll touch on one more thing that has to do with the cloud, and that's resiliency. Resiliency, not technical resiliency, but operational resiliency. Imagine that you have a data center that you have infrastructuring that you manage, your IT manages. And let's say they can get there. They can get into the data center. They physically can go in there because they're in lockdown or whatever. It can affect your business continuity. So part of the thing that you're running a global cloud service that is built with massive redundancy, with operational procedures that are all done to manage it remotely, with people that are available everywhere, you know, kind of globally to take care of things. This is one of the big reasons why companies go to the cloud, not just for cloud for purposes of SD-WAN or security, but for everything. The more infrastructure you have in the cloud, the more applications run in the cloud, the more resilient the business is, okay? Because the cloud provider is better structured to maintain things up and running under all kind of adversities. Okay, that's, I think, important to understand. And I think that's something our customers experienced. They were able to roll out remote access to 1,000 people more overnight. They the system itself just continued to work. Security was available the same way all over the world. All of these things just continued naturally with a cloud service. That's better resiliency for the business.
And I'll just note quickly before moving on here, unless I'm mistaken, that the instant access product we were just talking about actually reached market in March, which is just perfect timing. I mean, exactly when people needed something like that, all of a sudden it popped up.
Right.
So our readers, our listeners, they are VARs and MSPs and solution providers. They serve the SMB market. So I mean, how would you sort of summarize the business opportunity for that audience around SD-WAN and the security requirements that you've been talking about?
So I think that at the end of the day, what people want from the network is more capacity that is available, resiliency and redundancy, and kind of cloud readiness, cloud optimized kind of network. So I think the VARs can come in and offer that resilient network today, either as a managed service, if they're an MSP, or as a platform if the customer wants to manage it themselves or they just want to get the products in. So what it means is that you can get more, it would mean typically to get 2 or more ISP links in every location. You can buy more capacity than you would typically buy with an MPLS network for the same price. So SD-WAN drives the cost per megabit down. So if you pay $10 per megabit for MPLS, you may end up paying $1 per megabit for internet-based access. It doesn't have the same SLA, it doesn't have the same quality, but it also doesn't have the same constraints. So what a VAR and MSP could do and say, okay, we're gonna use the money we're saving for MPLS to put 2 links instead of 1. So you get better capacity. So you'll get maybe 10 times the capacity you get from MPLS. You get better resiliency because now you have 2 links that are doing the work or that are replacing a single link. And then we're going to put SD-WAN technology in that smartly will move traffic between those links. So if there is a problem in one, it will shift to the other and vice versa. And this smartness, this logic will overcome the quality advantage of MPLS. So if MPLS is more reliable than an internet link, 2 internet links from 2 different providers with SD-WAN smartness can actually achieve higher resiliency than MPLS. So it is an opportunity for the VARs and MSPs to step in and drive network transformation that will deliver to the customer for fundamentally similar cost to the current network, a network that have more capacity, more resiliency, and better performance. Now, plugging security into it may actually expand the scope of services that they provide. So it really depends what they sold. Sometimes those VARs are specializing in networking, and other VARs specializes in security. This is an opportunity to kind of expand. If you are only selling networking and SD-WAN is where things are going for you, so routers are going to go down. If you look at Gartner's prediction, there's minus 25% compound annual growth rate on routers and plus 24% on SD-WAN. So the market is shrinking. The total market will shrink, but the dollars will move from routers and kind of dumb equipment to smart equipment. That's a trend that is unstoppable. Okay, so if you're a networking VAR that used to sell routers and other type of equipment to the branch, you need to be ready to sell SD-WAN. And because SD-WAN and security are married, you have to be able to talk to the whole thing. So you have to expand skills, you have to train, you have to understand if you need 2 products or 1 product that will address the whole range. It may mean new players, right? You may have to work with security providers that added SD-WAN. And that's an interesting trend, maybe I'll touch on. And then if you're providing a managed service, of course, you need people with the right skills, right? You can't just say, I'm just doing the network piece if I'm also delivering the security piece. This has to be this is another opportunity to expand the scope of services. And I'll make it I'll give you an interesting stat. The security attach rate in our business, because we start with the network, we sell SD-WAN, customer says, I want security. We have basic security that comes with the SD-WAN, and then we have premium security, which is optional. We have 70% attach rate, okay, 7-0. So 70% of first-time buyers will buy both technologies. When this happens, the deal size doubles. Okay, so every $1 in networking, there's going to be $1 in security spend. If they buy, we have even more advanced services in security. We do managed detection and response. It's a system that finds malware that is already on your system and compromises it. Then security spend may be bigger than networking spend, than SD-WAN spend. So this is a big opportunity. You'll simply double the deals you're working on if you can deliver both networking and security. And it will strengthen your position because the customer doesn't have to worry about the security elements that are, as I said, mandatory, driven by, and must exist in the SD-WAN deal. So I think that's kind of where I see we particularly, because we are kind of an integrated platform and we are cloud-based, we are mostly looking for MSPs to work with. So we provide the platform, the MSP provides the kind of the 24/7 management, the understanding of the customer requirements, the configuration, analytics, all that other stuff. And that's a very good, and what's nice about it is the profitability of the service can be high because there's less duct taping, less integration, less grunt work. The MSP staff doesn't have to do a lot of stuff that we as a vendor do for everybody. If we skip stuff, maintain stuff, update stuff, all that automatic seamlessly in the background, the MSP doesn't have to invest time just integrating 2 or 3 products together and then make sure the integration works. So I think that's kind of my advice is think network plus security, double the deal size, build the skill set to allow basically to allow yourself to deliver this integrated service. And if you do all that, then you'll be able to position yourself as a SASE provider, which is the integration of, or the convergence of SD-WAN, security as a service in the cloud, and remote access together, all these 3 things, and you basically own the entire customer infrastructure. Okay, and in so many dimensions, then means your stickiness is higher. The customer has more invested in the relationship with you. These are all great ways to get better customer engagement.
And MSPs and integrators love nothing else than something that they can sell and deploy, and that leads to other things that they must then sell and deploy for profitability reasons. So we are almost out of time. This has been a fascinating discussion, a really good insight on how SD-WAN works and all of the opportunities around integrating all of those different layers together and the enhancements that it has. You did mention, though, that some things that are out there that are sold with like an appliance flavor. Can you describe the flavor profile of an appliance? Is it kind of metallic tasting? Is it fruity? What does that taste like?
So I would say it's mostly palm size. It's pretty metal. Actually, you can buy it as a virtual software appliance or a physical appliance. But the basic idea is that it's actually, we have 2 flavors for it. One is small for the branch, supporting up to 500 megabit, and it sits at the palm of my hand. It's literally that big, and it's a black box. You don't have to do anything to manage it or maintain it. You simply plug it to power, you plug the internet to it, or MPLS if you have, and it just phones home, finds the cloud, and connects, and there you go. We also have another one.
So that one, black box, it's like kind of a black cherry kind of flavor.
Exactly,
okay,
exactly.
Okay. And the
and
large
then we have
scale?
the pizza, and the large one is the pizza. So you have a pizza tray. It's literally called pizza in the IT jargon. It's designed to be put in a rack. And it has redundant power and redundant storage. It's data center class, and it can go up to 2 gig. And it basically is for larger requirements. So we would have a black cherry and a pizza, and there you go. You have the flavors right there.
Okay, because this is ChannelPro Weekly, I have to ask, because this is what we do here. Now we're getting into the important stuff. Yishai, if you were going to say your favorite pizza toppings, you're going to create your own ultimate pizza, what is on it?
Okay, so I like pepperoni a lot, double cheese, which I consider a topping, and I guess artichokes is the other one.
Artichoke on it. No, I don't know if I've ever had artichoke on a pizza. Rich, have you ever had artichoke on a pizza?
I have.
Yeah, we do.
Really?
Oh, yeah. In these Mediterranean countries, there is more veggies on pizzas than you maybe would expect. So there's all over, like whatever you like. So I like to blend kind of vegetables with some meat. I think that's makes a great pizza.
So in Israel, what would you say is the most popular pizza? Like here in the United States, it's like sausage, pepperoni, or we have something that's called like supreme, where it's onion and red pepper and pepperoni, or a couple things like that. What is like the Israel standard pizza?
So we kind of have more, I would say, Italian orientation. So it's like a baseline margarita, which is like tomato sauce and cheese, and then I would say pepperoni is definitely very popular here. And then just, again, different kind of vegetables. So olives will work, corn will work, things like that. Yeah. So I would say it's a half and half, veggies and meat, on a cheese and tomato based kind of platform.
Well, that's actually, that sounds really interesting. I'm gonna go and look up similar styles of that, and we'll see if we can try some here, Rich, the next time we get together. So, Ishai, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure everyone who's listened to this is like now way interested in not only SD-WAN, but Cato Networks and the security layer that you guys can provide and make this easy and profitable. Where can they go to learn more about this, and how can they get a hold of you?
So catonetworks.com/SASE, SASE is a great URL to start, or just our homepage, catonetworks.com. And you can get, it's very straightforward understanding of the platform. Of course, you can contact us through our website, or you can email me if you want. It's Ishai, YISHAY, at catonetworks.com, and I'll make sure that you get routed to the right place.
And if you need any advice on the ultimate Israeli pizza, he's also your point of contact there as well. So Ishai, thank you so much for joining us. I know that we're going to want to have more SD-WAN and SASE discussions like this, because we were just starting to really scratch the surface on some of the more details that go into building out that solution and some of the options. So I hope we'll be able to get you back someday. And with that, we are going to say goodbye and take a short break. When we come back, we'll have our kind of regular end of the show features of a museum picking a tech pick for you, and Rich will pull out his crystal ball and gaze into it and try to predict the future, often to hilarious results. So stick around for that. We will be right back. And we are back with part 3 of ChannelPro Weekly. Rich, what a phenomenal interview. I love it when we get people on like Ishai who are they get it, and they're super smart. And like, I never really understood necessarily a lot of the value behind SD-WAN. I mean, I get it, but I walked away with a much better understanding of how that works and why it's going to be kind of a critical thing, especially in this new kind of remote, workforce environment that we're going to be seeing.
Yeah, no, it was definitely an educational conversation we had. I got a lot of value out of it that way as well. And obviously, they come at SD-WAN from a security specific kind of angle, and the security dimension of that whole story was really interesting to me too. So yeah, no, it was good stuff.
Yeah, the one thing I didn't get to ask him about that I really, really wanted to was because when we were talking about, the great thing about SD-WAN is that if you got to go out and hit the internet, you don't have to route the traffic back to your data center and all of that, because that slows everything down. So it's a lot faster if the SD-WAN pushes it that way and manages all that. And then they're like, well, but then there's a security thing. So now you have to push it into ideally their cloud service. And I'm like, aren't you still just pushing all the data back into a data center somewhere before it goes back out to the internet? And like, doesn't that defeat the purpose? But I guess as he started talking about the scalability of his cloud service and all that stuff, I'm like, okay, I get it. And you're utilizing the internet, which is cheaper for the business, to get it into that secure cloud as it goes out to the internet. But I just kind of found it funny that like the whole point was to get it out of the data center, and then we got to put it back into the data center.
I think the idea is it's one hop instead of two. So instead of, your data center to the cloud, it's just straight to the cloud.
Yeah, well, or his cloud. Their cloud before the other. It's still 2 hops, but I guess their cloud's a lot faster is kind of what I was getting out of that. But yeah, definitely a fascinating conversation, and hopefully we'll get him back on at some point. And we definitely appreciate all of our guests who are from around the world. So Juan, Ishai was in Israel.
Oh wow.
When we did that, so he was up at like 8 o'clock in the evening. Overseas there to talk to us. So we've had some people in China as well. There's a person on from Lenovo that was in China. It was probably 11 o'clock at night their time when they were on talking to us. So
wow.
We really appreciate those who have to, in order to get on, come on at odd hours to meet us. So big thanks to Ishai, and hope everybody enjoyed that. So we're going to move on to a fun segment we do here on ChannelPro Weekly. Definitely become one of the fan favorites. We call it 5 questions. So the way 5 questions works is Rich and I, come up with 5 questions off the top of our heads, completely random. You don't know what we're going to ask. Generally to learn a little bit about you. Believe me, I have been known to ask some weird stuff. Are you ready? He's like,
I'm ready. Let's go.
I don't know if I'm ready for this. This is not going to be good.
This may get interesting.
All right. So, Rich, we could Rochambeau for it, but I'll just give you question number 1. Go ahead.
Okay. So Juan, you mentioned earlier on the show that you are currently restoring, I believe it was a 57 Bel Air.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to guess that's not the first car that you have restored. So if what is the coolest car that you've restored in the past?
I'd say, I know this is going to be for the car buffs. The one that the 57 is probably, this is like the car, right? I finally feel like I can do a holy grail car, and I feel like my skills are up to par, and I can accomplish it. But inside of me, the one that I just finished during the beginning of COVID was a 2002 convertible GT Mustang, V8, fully restored, complete new body, complete new motor, complete interior, convertible top. I've always wanted a convertible, and I've always been a Mustang fan. So I decided, you know what, hey, let's do that. I'd say that was probably one of the cooler cars just because it had a convertible top. That's about it. But other than that, as far as total number of cars, I think I'm at 13 now. I think I've done 13 cars in some aspect of restoration.
Wow, very, very cool. Can you name a couple of the other kind of cars that you've restored?
Yep, 67. It was 67 Impala Caprice, a 1971 Ford F1, a 1962 Chevy 3500, a 1952 Ford F1. A whole ton of them. I've actually done. What was it? A 2001. I can't think of the name of it. Dodge Avenger, right?
Oh, cool.
So those in that era, right? 1996 2500 Chevy Suburban, where I made that like a mud bogging truck.
So sub question 1A, do you keep all of these, or do you end up selling them?
I end up selling them. I just don't have my enjoyment is actually building them and then getting them to some aspect. I mean, we built drag cars for years. So, we would buy the drag car, build it up, and then get it to sub 10 seconds or 9-second range and then sell them. So I have none of them. I have pictures of all of them, but I only have one. My wife has a strict limit on my car keeping capability.
Very cool. Very, very, very cool hobby. I've never been a big car buff, but it sounds like that sounds like a very, very cool hobby to have. All right, I will do question number 2. We talked about getting big through the consumption of fatty foods. So if you had to get big, but you could only choose one fast food place to get big at, which would it be and why?
Oh, man. Oh, that's a bad question. One fast food place?
You can only pick one.
In-N-Out Burger.
Going In-N-Out.
Going In-N-Out.
Great choice.
Yeah. Now, when you go there, do you normally order off like the secret menu?
No, I'm not. I'm a double guy. Give me a couple doubles and a shake, and I'm good. That's probably why I'm a little rounder now during COVID. Is the drive-throughs.
That's awesome. Rich, question number 3.
So you mentioned a daughter. You got a child. You got kids.
I do.
And this is as random as it gets on 5 questions. Disney World or Disneyland?
We have enjoyed the most Disneyland. Disney World has always been different for us. So Disneyland.
In what way?
It's just every time we go there, the weather's weird. And either it rains or something happens, or like there's this weird scenario like, hey, a hurricane's coming, we got to go. So Disneyland's always been better to us. We've gone a lot to Disneyland. So it's always been a good time.
Yeah, Orlando weather is very unpredictable certain times of year. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 4 to me. Ooh, Rich, I don't have a question number 4. Let me think of one. Rich, do you have a question number 4? And I'll do number 5.
Okay. So in different times, Juan, in better times, we would probably cross paths on the road, conferences and so on. We'd be traveling. So
Yeah.
is there an activity you particularly like to do when you are on the road for a conference or something like that, and you have a little free time in the evening, or just you maybe extend a trip by a day or something like that? Is there something in particular you kind of like to do in these cities you visit?
Just depends if I'm by myself or if I'm with my wife. So it's not don't look at me like that, Matt. It's not like that.
I was like, your wife might listen to this. This will be interesting.
My wife is sitting in earshot. Trust me. But if I'm, and she says this all the time, if I was by myself, the most likely thing that I would do would be collaborating with others and going out to dinners and really understanding where channel is. I love connecting with people. I'm like addicted to like just building relationships and really helping others and maybe hearing advice and really data gathering and understanding where we're at. Now, if I'm with my wife, she totally gets me to check out. And that's the reason I love taking her with me, is because she's like, hey, I want to go see something, or I want to go and have some fun, or we'll just go sit on the beach. Like I love going and just sitting on the beach and watching the waves come in, man. I miss that the most. So those are the two things. Don't get crazy on me, Matt.
Good stuff. No, it makes a lot of sense. I wasn't sure which direction you're going. Like,
it could have gotten
hitting the clubs and going to the strip bars.
Hey, no. My team knows there's no way you're getting me to never would I get to one of those. But I will take my wife to the club. We've gone there a ton of times. I've actually taken my kids with me to shows in Vegas where I've been speaking or others. And I've taken my daughters to the clubs. I mean, we've love to go to the clubs, that kind of club, dancing club.
Right.
With my wife.
Right. Understood.
Yeah.
Keeping it family friendly.
Yeah.
That's the way to go. Okay. I do have a question number 5, because you mentioned your wife, and earlier you were talking about how your wife is kind of imposing this forced hobby of plant collection. Around your house, putting lots of greenery, which is good because it's good for stress and all that stuff. But she mentioned that she gave you a Venus flytrap. If you were going to name your Venus flytrap, what would you name it? We're going to name it right here on ChannelPro Weekly. So you got to come up with a name for your plant.
The name for the plant. How about Trappy? We'll call it Trappy.
Good old Trappy. Let's see Trappy. Look at this, folks. ChannelPro Weekly history. Juan has named his plant right on air as we've done this. Oh, look at that. Now, have you gotten a chance to actually see it eat a fly yet?
No, not yet. I am excited for them to open and actually eat a fly. And this spawned from a conversation I had with my wife. There was a bug in here, and I was like, God, I really hate bugs. Like, if we could just keep the door closed, maybe they're coming in when you let the dogs out. And she's like, there's no bugs in here. And I'm like, I see the bug. So there was like this mysterious bug for like a week. And so she bought this Venus flytrap. She's like, now there's no more bug, watch. And I'm like, oh, you're too much.
I will tell you, you will never look at a plant the same way once you actually see it eat something, because normally you think plants, you put fertilizer down, you put water on it, and it grows. Well, like this thing, got a mouth and it digests stuff. It's pretty crazy. That's
really weird. I'm looking forward to seeing it do it, though. That's
this insane world that we live in. All right. Well, Juan, thanks for playing 5 questions. Very interesting. Always lots of fun. You never know what we'll ask you next time. All right. So I alluded at the end of our interview that we have a museum pick coming up, and we are always changing stuff down to the very last minute. So we discovered that Juan has an old laptop in his office that would be a perfect fit. And so I turn over my museum pick, which Juan has learned that I've got all kinds of stuff around here. I collect everything. It's nuts. But I always love it when I can turn it over to a guest. So Juan, your museum pick, please.
And
all right. So this is an HP notebook. So what notebook is that?
This is a DB6700. Pavilion DV6700.
And it looks like it's in really good shape. Oh, let's say that's a DVD drive on the side.
Yeah.
It's got the 3 jacks on the front. Wow, what connector is that? What is
that? A parallel?
I see a series. I see a VGA port. I see power.
Yeah.
That must be some kind of weird proprietary HP connector for one of their accessories or something.
Yeah, it says it's an expansion port number 3.
Oh, and nothing like expansion port number 3. We got a power connector. So Juan, tell us how old is this? How did you acquire this particular notebook?
So this is actually one of the first notebooks that I actually, when I first saw the HP product line, I had built my first IT company, Integrated Technology Solutions, and this was the first laptop that I actually bought for myself. And it was super expensive. It was like $1,800. Like this, I only had like 3 customers at the time. And this laptop has survived forever. And I beat this thing up. I mean, it built so many infrastructures. I mean, just look at the fan. I mean, from sitting on my lap, it's worn out. Like all the little tabs, like the labels are worn off. So this laptop, it still runs. I put an SSD in it, and it actually is running Windows 10 on like an ancient, like Pentium processor. What was the specs that you found on it, Matt?
Yeah, so this one shipped with the 2.4 gigahertz Intel Centrino.
There you go.
Core 2 Duo processor, the T8300. So this was, if I remember correctly, this was the last line of Core processors where they kept that Centrino branding. I believe they dropped it after this.
Yeah.
And never had it again. It used the Intel 965PM chipset. Yours was an Intel based. I guess there was an AMD variant as well. The features did come with a SATA hard drive, which you've replaced with an SSD, DVD RW and CD RW dual-layer combo drive. It said it's also capable of playing Blu-ray and BD-ROM discs. I doubt that for some reason. I don't think that is correct.
I don't think so. It didn't even burn CDs very well. I replaced that CD-ROM drive like 3 times.
Yeah, I don't think that is true. 2 gigs of RAM, DDR2, 667 megahertz RAM, 2 slots, 6-cell lithium-ion battery, 15.4-inch monitor with a super high resolution of 1200 by 800. Sound Blaster Pro compatible graphics or sound 8400 GS GPU, so NVIDIA Go graphics card, integrated 56K modem, 10100 base T Ethernet LAN, and an Intel, and it did have wireless. This says A, B, and G, and N. I would be surprised if it was N. It was probably A, B, G.
It didn't do an N. I can tell you that.
Yeah, this is not an HP spec sheet. This is something I found online. So let's take these specs with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
so
it was
very cool.
that amazing.
Yeah, so great museum pick. And you said it still runs? Like, what do you use it for? Or do you just kind of have it because it still works?
I actually use this laptop. I used to DJ for a little while, and I actually used that laptop as my DJ laptop, if you would. That's all it did. And as a matter of fact, the DJ software is still on there with music on it. Anytime I fire it up, I plug it into my stereo and just hit play.
Rich, like our guests are, it's just like peeling back an onion. Like there's a new layer. You were a DJ?
For a little bit, right? So there was some time, right? I did that for a little bit.
So did you do like weddings or like high school dances? Where did you DJ?
It was like nightclub type DJ.
No way, really? This is fascinating. Oh, I know what a lot of my 5 questions are going to be next time. Super, super cool. All right, so so a great museum pick, and we'll talk about my tech pick here in a minute. But I pulled out a special one, and I know you have another one that you're going to show off too.
I do.
So because you said you worked for AOL, I've shown this on the show before, but I do have one that I've never shown. So I'm going to hold this up. I still have one of these.
Oh, look at that. Holy smokes. Where's the other ones?
So for those listening, this is an Americana Online floppy disk. The oldest version I have is I thought I had a 2.3. This one's 2.5. I thought I had a 2.3 somewhere, and I'm still looking for an original 1.0. I've never found one. They're super rare. They're super rare.
Wow.
So I got one of those, but I've never shown this one. So I still have a similar one, but in the original shrink wrap.
Holy smokes.
This has never been opened. And
That's,
this is the version 3.0.
I'm going to have to talk to you about that. Like, that's like that's where it started for me. Like, I've got one of those in the mail, and that's what got me started.
Yeah. So 1997 was this one. The other one was 1993 to 1995. But this one I keep around, not because it's the oldest. I'm still trying to get the oldest, but it's never been out of the original package.
That is awesome.
Mint. Now you have an interesting one too.
I do. So when you were like loading up the disk to like call in AOL to get connected, you would got a hold of somebody on the other end of that line, and that would have been somebody like me. And I got something to share because it's super important to me, and I've kept this forever. I had two of these. One of them was really used, and this one, actually, I opened it probably about 5 years ago. And I did it just because I was showing my kids I was going to throw it away. And I said, you know what, don't throw that away. I have the Webster's Dictionary from 1994 of all of the websites that were available at the time. The original search engine right here, right? This is what I used to use to give people advice on things that they were looking for on AOL, as far as keywords go, like, you know, golf.com or any of these. So it gives you a little breakdown of, you know, religion or, you know, whatever it is you're looking for, and you can actually look at the website.
So folks, that is absolutely amazing. So you have to understand, folks, he is holding a book, a physical printed book that was basically a directory, a phone book of every website at the time.
Right.
Except it's not phone book size. Like, how many pages is that thing?
So this one here says address and descriptions of the top sites, all the top sites in over 175 categories. And there is 374 pages, and Yahoo happens to be the last one.
So can you imagine today what a book like that would be like in size?
I couldn't possibly imagine printing one.
You'd kill an entire forest. Hey, maybe that might solve the forest fire problems, Rich. Well, you just need to print one giant internet directory.
Yeah, it would be wild.
That is awesome. Never get rid of that. And if you do, I will give you a mailing address. You will send me that.
Oh, God, yeah. This is the last one I got, too. I had two of them. Like I said, the other one was really beat up because I actually used to flip through it every day. I had memorized quite a few, but this is it.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those with us. That's just awesome. So cool. And I love the museum pick, the DV6700.
Yeah.
Very, very cool pick as well. So generally I do a tech pick, and naturally the phone rings when I every time we do a show. It's just the way it is here, folks. Every episode we usually do a tech pick, and we kind of alluded to it earlier. So my original tech pick for this episode was actually going to be the EliteDesk. It was going to be the EliteDesk 805G. The EliteDesk 800 G5 was going to be the original tech pick of this particular show. But because we saw the news release of the EliteDesk 805 G6, nice hardware upgrades in there, very similar look. I will throw up, I couldn't find a picture of it, Rich, but I will put the 800 G5 up here for people to look at. I should have done this a little sooner. Stand by. So there it is, right there. The 800 G5 small form factor, nice looking unit, very, very small. Good specs on the inside, also customizable. They've got lots of different versions and variants of this particular unit. But the 800 G6 it switches over to newer desktop chips, newer processors, AMD based. It has an AMD Ryzen Pro solution that can drive 6 monitors at once, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
So I think that would be if you're in the market for something like an EliteDesk, hang off just another month or so and wait for the 805 G6, get the latest stuff. And that is my tech pick for today, the HP EliteDesk 805G6, small form factor.
Do you want to see the?
Did you find a picture of it? I couldn't find a picture of it.
I mean, and there may only be pictures available in the press kit, but while we're talking here, I just went into the press kit. Let's see if I can quickly get a picture. Okay, so I will share my screen here. Oh, actually, I'm not allowed to share my screen. Is that something you can enable?
I'm not sure. It's probably because you are not the host. But if I worry that if I make you the host, make co-host. Yes.
You may not
now you
want
should be able to.
You may not want to make Rich the host. He may.
I know, who knows what he's going to throw up on the screen here.
He's going to spin this show around.
There it is.
Okay, so very similar looking. They changed the port arrangement around. It has still a USB-C on the front, but it went to more of a darker smoke color gray and slightly different design on the chassis. Looks nice though. That looks nice. Very cool. All right. So that is my tech pick, the 805G6. Looks like a nice machine. Juan, how many are you going to buy?
I'd love to have one on my desk right now, but I hopefully I can buy and sell thousands of them.
Me too. And if you get an extra one, you don't know where to send it, my address can be easily provided. All right, Rich, if you can, please, why don't you look back over the past week and tell us what might have happened, and then pull out that giant crystal ball of yours, gaze into it, and tell us what you see.
Well, in terms of what happened earlier this week, the best place to find out about that, of course, every Friday on ChannelProNetwork.com is our In Case You Missed It post, written by our own James Gaskin. This week, we've been talking a ton about HP and HP hardware, but Apple had some hardware out in the news this week. James will round all that up for you. We've got news from Splashtop, Atera, Avast Business. They all had new products out there this week. And then James will also be telling you a little bit about proof that delayed postal deliveries you may have been hearing about lately are nothing new. A postcard mailed 100 years ago finally reached its intended destination in Michigan just recently. Now, looking ahead to next week, we know that Microsoft is holding its Ignite conference online, of course. So pretty safe to predict that there's going to be a bunch of news out of Microsoft, and I'm already starting to hear from some Microsoft partners who are going to have product news coming out next week. So lots of news, tech news from the Microsoft channel and Microsoft itself next week, and also the ASCII group will be holding its latest online conference for members in the New England area.
So I've heard the excuse like, oh, sorry, it's late because it dropped between the seats. What's the excuse for 100 years? Like, it would have been horses, like slip between the horses. You got buried with the horse. I mean, the horse would be long dead. Did you get buried with the horse? How does that happen?
You want to hear the Postal Service?
I do, actually. I'm super curious. Like, did they like lift up a big dresser or something that was in the post office, and lo and behold, it was been under there for 100 years? Like, how did that happen?
So if you're a suspicious sort, you might think that's what happened. But what they said happened, this happens now and again. And what it is somebody goes into like an antique store or something like that, and they find a 100-year-old postcard with postage on it, and they drop it in the mail. So they're saying the Postal Service is saying, we didn't lose it, we just got it, and hey, it's got a stamp on it, so we delivered it.
And like that, and it was delivered. Was it? I can't imagine that the person it was addressed to was still there.
No. This woman goes out to get the mail, and there was something, I forget the name now. Ross McInerney. It's like, some person she's never heard of is on the 2 line, and it took a while. She was kind of going about her day before she went back to look, what is this thing, and she realized this has not been sent anywhere recently.
So someone filled out a postcard, put a stamp on it, and then was just too lazy to drop it off.
I guess so. Yeah, actually, it sounds like the kind of thing I might do. Like, it would just sit on my desk somewhere, and then someday somebody buys my desk at an antique place. Well, you know what? I'm going to mail this.
That's just awesome. I love it. All right, cool. Well, that's going to wrap up episode 160. Juan, a huge thanks for coming on today. I had a great time. What a great show. The time has just flown by. I hope you had a good time.
I had an amazing time, you guys. Thanks for having me. This is an absolute blast.
That's good. I would love to have you back at some point in the future if you are up for it. We always know if a guest really had fun if they come back.
Yeah.
so no, it was awesome. So for folks who want to learn more about ImageNet Consulting or connect with you to consult with you, where can they go? How can they get a hold of you?
Jump out on LinkedIn, linkedin.com, Juan Fernandez, ImageNet Consulting, hit ImageNet.com. We got a lot of great webinars and blog posts and stuff that we put out. We're all about helping out. So, you find me on LinkedIn, you're definitely going to get a lot of channel type education. Just come see us, come say hi.
Awesome. And and you're in the Texas area, right?
I am. I live in Dallas.
So if you're in Dallas, you can schedule an appointment and
come on by. We'll go have lunch. Meet
them in person. Have lunch outdoors somewhere with masks or whatever. You gotta be safe. You never know what people are carrying these days.
Yeah.
So do that. But then again, thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate it. Thank you to Yishai Yovel from Cato Networks for a great interview and for coming on with us. Rich, the best way to listen to or watch ChannelPro Weekly, you know what the best way is? Well, I think you were muted there when you said that, but you can try it again.
I was going to say, what's that, man?
It is to subscribe. And you know how you do that? You go to Apple Podcasts, you go to Google Play Podcasts, you go to Libsyn, you go to Spotify, you go to Stitcher, you go anywhere podcasts are sold. Go to channelpronetwork.com, find any show page, and there's going to be all kinds of links to go and subscribe on your platform of choice. Subscribe, then you don't have to worry about it. Episodes will come down soon as they're released, and you can listen in the car or on the go on to job sites, listen in the background while you're working. It's a great way to keep in touch with ChannelPro Weekly. If you do like to watch, we are on YouTube. You can subscribe on YouTube. Go and hit the little bell. You got to hit the red button that says subscribe, and then you have to hit a bell. And I'm sure Google will add another thing you have to hit at some point because they like to make things more complicated, I guess. I don't know what that's all about. But do all those things, and then you'll get notified of new episodes on YouTube, and you go and you can watch us there, and you can see our museum pics, and you can see our bright, smiley faces as we do this show. ChannelProNetwork.com is the website. Go there each and every day for news, articles, white papers, downloads, podcasts, anything and everything you need to not only stay informed, but to get great sage advice to help grow your business, make more money, and be more profitable, especially from folks like Juan Fernandez as well. We're on the social networks. We're ChannelPro Network on Facebook, ChannelPro Network on LinkedIn, at ChannelPro SMB on Twitter. Rich, what are you on the Twitters?
At Rich Free.
I'm at Whitlock on Twitter. Juan, are you on the Twitters?
I'm not.
You don't twit?
No twit.
No twitting. That's okay. Too many people twit way too much, in my opinion. So probably not a bad thing. But find Juan on LinkedIn and his website, ImageNetConsulting.com.
Yep.
That's the one. See, I guessed off the top of my head. But I think you also just said it. So maybe it wasn't a guess. Maybe it just stuck in my brain because it was so easy to remember. And that is going to wrap it up for episode 160. I want to thank everyone for tuning in with us this week. And we will be back next week. Hopefully. We might not be back next week. There might be a reason why, but we'll get into that. So if there is no show next week, we should be back the following week. And we will see you all then. Goodbye.